Welcome to hashtag 52 Boundaries. And I am so delighted to have with me Kenny Mammarella D-Cruz, who is a man whisperer, the man whisperer. And we are talking about love and boundaries around love and in relationships and, all of that comes with it, because those are the things we really define. We fall in love, we love someone, and then anything goes, and then it doesn't. So let's talk boundaries. Hello, Kenny.
So good to see you and hang out with you and talk about, I was going to say, and maybe it's true, one of the most important things to me, love and boundaries. And one of the biggest lessons that I learned in my life, because I was brought up without any boundaries. And I was brought up a nice Catholic boy in a nice Catholic family, addicted to what will people think. So it would be putting on a good show, second guessing what everyone wants, and giving it to them. And I had no idea who I was, or what I wanted, or what I needed. And it was all about giving love, giving love, giving love. And it wasn't love, it was fear-based anyway. In order to be safe, in order to not be rejected or abandoned, in order to be approved of. And in essence, what I now realize is I was offering my inner child to every Tom, Dick, and Harriet, rather than taking care of it myself and actually existing and having needs. And giving love, it was actually a control game, where as I gave love and I didn't receive love, I retained control. And it was a sad, lonely place to come from that actually worked very well in a survival world. And I was popular and necessary, but it was not real. It was not being in love. It was being in fear and having a great survival act.
Yeah. What prompted the switch? The recognition?
I just somehow realized, I don't know what it was, but the penny dropped somehow. I just realized. And earlier on today, I'm 58 now, but I gate crashed the young men's group online. And that's for under 35s. But hey, got to make sure that they're doing well. I trained them. And one of the things that I was surprised to say is how often during every day, including interviews, including talking with you, including when I'm with clients, I'm on the verge of tears. And what I said to them is, I would rather come from love and be so open and available for connection that I'm on the verge of tears, rather than being in control and in my head and second guessing and unavailable. And what brought that on was one of the guys said how nice it was to receive compliments. And all I said was how amazing it is, the way that he's changed, where he was very much a muscles, money, monkeying around, alpha male, who do people want, how can I be this, that, and the other? And he was sad and lonely inside, where now he's authentic and available and quiet and calm and fun. And it's amazing how he's changed just by showing up rather than showing off. And I described that to him. And when he said how amazing it felt to have a compliment, and I was just describing what I saw rather than being complimentary, I remembered how if anyone was nice to me or gave me a compliment, I just wanted to cry. I wasn't used to it. I didn't like it. I wanted to run to the hills. And that was me not being used to it and just giving and giving and giving it.
Yeah. I had for me, when somebody gave me a compliment, because everything that you've said so far, I went, did we grow up in the same family? So for me, compliments were always, I couldn't trust them because I always wondered if there was an agenda behind it. Did somebody want me to do something? Did somebody want me to be something? What did I have to do in order to earn that compliment? Surely it wasn't right. No, then the imposter syndrome kicked in, all of those things. And so, and it just, I'm just going. The other thing that you've just said, when it's there's a vulnerability that relates to that. And if you can't accept that vulnerability is not weakness, but it's actually a strength.
Yeah.
It's really hard to let things in. And then, having a boundary and being vulnerable around opening that up, then then you go into the soft boundaries, into the I have no boundaries, and it becomes the, what do I have to do in order to fit in, to thank you.
Yeah.
I own this. I recognize this, or thank you. I'll look into embracing that.
Vulnerability is power. Vulnerability is authenticity and availability. And I was never available to myself, but I was always available to everyone else. And I remember when I studied holistic counseling at Nature Care College in Sydney. Did you go there?
Yeah.
You are kidding.
No, holistic counseling.
That's amazing. And I remember on the reading list was Pia Melody, Facing Love Addiction.
Yes.
And it was penny dropping. Yep. Oh my God, I didn't realize I was a love addict.
Yep.
And I didn't realize, so my addiction was love. To be wanted, to be needed, to be serving, to be saving, to attract victims, to not now really be there for parties or good times, but to be that rock, that parent replacement, that reliable person who would always be there to help lick wounds and make things better.
Yep.
And therefore, unchuckable.
Proven my value, so therefore I have a right to stay around. But if I don't prove my value anymore, you can chuck me.
In fact, you ought to.
Yes.
Because if I'm not giving you anything, why would you want to be near me?
Exactly.
And then I realized that I'd attracted avoidance addicts, people who were unavailable. And they were the ones who would be badly behaved and exciting and rude and take risks and be the nasty people who I wouldn't want to be.
Yeah.
And they had super, super strong boundaries where I had none.
Yeah.
So I attracted my shadow. Yeah. And whatever it was that I disowned, they played for me.
Yeah.
And whatever it was that they disowned, I played for them.
Yeah.
And I thought, oi, oi.
No, it's not working.
Surely I don't need to dirty my paws with that kind of behavior. And then I needed to unlearn who I no longer need to be in order to be able to be in love.
Yeah.
In love with life, in love with being able to receive love was the bottom line. And if I'm not receiving it and I'm just giving it, that's a hoax.
Yeah.
And once I realized what I was doing, of course I couldn't do it anymore. And I needed to take the plunge and be vulnerable, which was like suicide. How stupid. Life was dedicated to avoid the very thing that apparently was going to set me free. Yeah. Now, how screwed up is that as a concept? But and it got bad. It really got bad because I demanded narcissists. I demanded them. And they attracted me and I attracted them. And it hurt. It really hurt. And shockingly, I was the common denominator. And then I realized that that I had a couple of major narcissists in my life from the day I was born.
Yep.
And if that's the way I was programmed, then of course I would take this space. It's got nothing to do with blame. It's got nothing to do with shame. And it's got everything to do with the environment in which I was raised, that I tried to make sense of. And I'd say both the narcissists in my life were compulsive liars as well. And as soon as the compulsive liar tells a lie, it becomes the truth.
Yeah.
So as a child and as an adult, I tried to make sense of things. That's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, realizing that I need to own my shadow.
Yeah.
And show up and take part and risk being abandoned and risk being rejected, and not to play the nice little boy, golden boy, butter wouldn't melt game, and be my own man. And for me, being a man meant I needed to be masculine and I needed to be feminine, not just the feminine, and not blagging or pretending with the masculine. And for me, the feminine is receiving love and being present, where the masculine was putting out, like playing up, and not being able to receive, but second guessing and performing. So my authentic man can give and receive love, can respond rather than react.
Yeah.
Where my vulnerable little boy could only react or second guess and manipulate, I guess, is the horrible elephant in the room. So as a love addict and a nice Catholic boy, I was a prime manipulator who knew how to play the passive aggressive controlling game. How many Hail Marys is that going to cost?
And the thing is we learn how to cope. We put these coping mechanisms in place because that's what we have learned. This is what a lot of the other generations used to play. I mean, when I did holistic counseling at Nature Care, we had to go back and identify, as you would have done, generational themes and go back and find out what kind of behaviors, what kind of patterns, what kind of illnesses did my ancestors have. And I was able to go back 5 generations. And I found out that there were quite a number of patterns that I had not expected. Diabetes and heart problems were just one of them. But the other one was the other one was a commitment to having unhappy marriages, like a solid commitment to having unhappy marriages. My grandparents were celebrating their golden wedding anniversary, and we're all sitting around the table and everybody's applauding. And, look at them. They have stuck it out through thick and thin, and they're still together. They were sitting next to each other. They hadn't spoken in 3 months, but they were there. And, so to recognize this whole, you have to stay in something that is really triggering your old patterns. It's creating lots of unhappiness, but we are sticking this out no matter what. So
secrets and lies and martyrdom.
Everything. Yes. Oh, everything. The drama queen comes out again. Yeah. So it was like, for example, when I got married, the one thing I said, I was not going to go into the wedding vows. And I said to my husband, if you want to put that in there, I'm not going to get married. And that was until death do us part. That was a very hard boundary for me. I will not put that in there. I will put in there as long as this love and this commitment lasts. But I don't know who I'm going to be in 30 years' time. And I want to be able to continually renew this agreement, not from a place of I have to, I'm obliged to, but from choice. And that was the flexible boundary.
2 things cross my mind so loudly as you say that. Number one is when I got married, and my wife and I never intended to get married because we'd never seen a marriage that we wanted to be like. But she asked me on the 29th on a leap year, and it was right. Something shifted.
You had to.
Hence the double-barreled. Marmarella's her name. And the second one, and ours was, I intend right here and right now, I intend to be with you for the rest of my life. And that's got to be right here and right now, because there is only the present.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the other one, what was the other one that crossed my mind? Oh my God. The other one is the way that since lockdown, especially with people being together, how I have really learned about hormones.
Mm.
And it could be female hormones that everyone has a lot to say about, good, bad, and ugly. Or it could be male hormones or other things that affect men and women. But I know with men, the full moon, for example. But, there's the andropause with male. And how many people, how many marriages dissolve because of hormones, especially menopause?
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, it's like, don't take it personally, men. Don't turn into scared little boys or try and make sense of it. It's not logical.
Mm.
There are so many things that are, for me, stay in love, be in the question, see what's going to happen, let it pass, rather than fix, save. Oh my God, I've done something wrong. She's angry, she's upset. Well, actually, maybe it's not all about me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe something else is at play.
Mm-hmm.
And little boys and children generally, if there's any pain, if there's anything wrong, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be, what did I do wrong?
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with me? Why did that person leave? Why did that person die? Why did the parents split? Why did whatever it is? I must have done something. It's just the way that children are. And so many men can be like that. And also, I guess, with the andropause and the way that male bodies change, it's like, oh my God, my libido's gone,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm getting old. What do I do? Well, I need to run to the hills and find a big car and a young girl to make me feel better, because surely it's nothing to do with me and it's all to do with her.
Yeah.
And there are so many men that I know in their 40s, 50s, 60s, up to their 80s, who haven't quite done adolescence yet, or the adolescence and puberty wasn't right.
Yeah.
So they'll still be chasing that time and still be looking at girls of that age, because there's a wound there, and still be scared of women, or still be scared of being a man and being found out. What, you're pretending to be a man? Don't be silly, little boy. Go and do the washing up. As you imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Where to meet in the pain, and in the love, and in the drama, and in bed, and in grief, and to just be silent next to the partner, or next to the best friend, or next to a stranger even. Just be silent, and to meet myself in that place. And if there's anything to ask or say, then ask and say it. But for me, my biggest addiction was my thinking and my saving and my reacting. And now my biggest gift is the not thinking and the being, and the being with myself. Therefore, I can be with other people. And we can find out where we want to meet. We can find out who we are and where we are, and therefore where we want to meet in this present moment.
The thing is, it requires a lot of awareness to be able to do that. And again, we often just repeat what we have learned from previous generations. Like, I know that a lot of women feel also that they may have had their adolescence, but then they grew up. And then they married, or they got into a relationship with boys. And all of a sudden, and I've had that experience, I'm married to, I'm my mother. I don't have a partner, I have a son. And I started changing into somebody who I went, I don't like myself. I don't want to be that person. I also wanted to receive, and it wasn't happening. And I did a lot of work on that. And it's really interesting to talk to women who then often leave marriages because they stop waiting around for the husband to wake up, to grow up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they are the ones who continue growing in maturity. And I'm saying, I know you and I are both totally generalizing. But there's this continuous growth and maturity. And then you have these wise women who are going, you know what? I'm not sure that I want to get back into a relationship again. Whereas men often go, okay, where's the next partner? And again, ideally the one that reflects that the age is to where it would have been. So the second wife often has the same age as the first when they got married, or somewhere in that area, right?
Yeah.
It's again, we're talking, I mean, we're way beyond boundaries at this point, but it's, maybe we're not.
No, I think this is exactly the boundaries.
Yeah.
And it's so funny when you describe that. I'm thinking about one of my clients who said, yeah, well, I've done the same as all my friends. First husband, heartthrob, bit of rough, motorcycle, whatever. And then I had enough of it. And I just wanted a nice, stable accountant to have a nice house and take the kids to a nice school and settle down and be safe and be sensible. But being whole rather than chasing the next relationship or fix to fill the emotional hole, being whole.
And that's the thing, that's the difference in boundaries. When you have soft boundaries, generally people go in and they go, please give me what I need. Like this is often the people who look for their better half. There's nothing that gets me running to the hills faster than that. Because I'm already whole. Why would I do that, right? Cut myself in half. Then there are the people with the rigid boundaries who just have this whole sense of everything has to be done according to what I want. There's no vulnerability. It's just control. Because there's this need for, control is not a need. It's a mechanism in which we meet our needs, right?
Survival. It's a very strong survival. And you know what you described there? I thought that boundaries were those barriers, because those are barriers, not boundaries. One of my favorite bands is an Australian band, Andrew and Jonathan. They're called I Fly. And they wrote a song, I Am Only Me Behind These Walls. Brilliant song. Yeah. If you want to be with me, then you need to come and meet me behind these walls. And it's like, when I heard about boundaries, I just thought, well, no, that's barriers. Bad people have barriers. Nice people will let everyone in, and it's access all areas.
Yep.
Bad people, I don't want to be a bad person. I want to be a nice person. Yep. Therefore, I'm going to join the victim club, and we can all be victims of the bad people, and we can be the nice people chasing the bad people who will eventually come to us when we're in pain and then abandon us when it's party. And so it went on. But boundaries, yeah. And neither of those were intimate. Love addiction, avoidance addiction, not intimate. Yeah. But being able to be with and say, whatever needs to be said. So there is a meeting in the moment. And once there's a meeting, to enter the merry dance of love and life and relationship, because it's got to be a dance, and it includes pain. Yeah. And it includes bliss, and it includes embarrassment, and it includes commitment, but not addiction commitment.
No.
But I love you enough to know that if anything changes, we're still in relationship, but the circumstances might change. Yep. And that might include divorce, or that might include living in different countries. I was devastated when my best friend moved to California. Devastated. He's back now, punished him, had to. Well, no, it was more on the phone. It was on the phone that it's like, I think there was pain that I didn't know. And it's like, this is, we're like Winnie the Pooh and Piglet.
Yes.
We meet in such a tender, pure, loving, open place, which is why we can be best friends, because we allow love. And I guess that's why I could be punishing a nasty on the phone sometimes, because I was in pain, and that's what little boys do. And that's commitment, that's love. And with my wife being tolerant of me when I'm manic with the full moon, or the poor woman sometimes just can't sleep for whatever reason, and then she's just all over the place and doesn't make sense and can be quite moody. And it's like, well, that's not me being a bad little boy who needs to be punished and abandoned. That's someone who needs to sleep. It's crazy the way that the mind can make a mess.
Again, when you were saying that, I mean, I've come from, we just talked about this earlier. You're an owl, I'm a lark. And when you are living with somebody who likes to stay up very late, and you're somebody who gets up very early, things can get very messy, because sleep then becomes really difficult. And there's nothing wrong. And I've said this to people: if your sleep habits are so different from your partner's, and if it's in any way, shape, or form possible, have separate bedrooms. And create a space where you come together in such a way that it doesn't become awkward, or, that's my space and that's now yours. Negotiate that. And that sounds like negotiate, like it's a peace negotiation. It's not. We need to talk about our needs. And in a relationship with healthy boundaries, you do that. And you don't expect that the other person mind reads them and says, I know now that you really need to be alone now, I'm going to go. But says, hey, do you want me to stay or do you want me to go? And that is just, it makes things so much easier. But there's so much fear around that. People don't want to ask the question because they go, the other person should know this answer already. If they really loved me, they wouldn't have to ask. Or they go, if I ask, and what you said, they're going to abandon me, they're going to leave me. So if I ask and I show that I don't know them well enough to know what they should be thinking, because if I were in their shoes, that's what I mean. It gets so complicated, right? Then we're doomed.
I find it quite hilarious the way some people say to me, well, in the beginning, it's like we think the same thing at the same time and we'd mind read each other. And now we just don't anymore. There are misunderstandings. And I'm kind of thinking, well, it's called growth. It's called progress. It's called moving on in your lives. And it's like, that was the honeymoon period. And the one that really gets me is, when she does that, when she leaves a mess, or it's so cute. And for the first few weeks or months, it's cute. And then it's like, I'm kill her.
Yeah, exactly.
From charming to now that deserves punishment.
Yeah. See, I have been from an early age. This is one of my I think it's one of my superpowers, is I am a pattern detector. So I see something. I mean, brain works on repetition, right? So when we see something once, or when something happens once, it's an accident. It happens twice, it's coincidence. And 3 times is the beginning of a pattern. So I would notice these things and I would call them. And I would say, I can see this. Is this what we do? And in my family is this what we've always done? This doesn't work. Can we change that? And I would get, oh God, Angela, do you have to make a mountain out of a molehill every single time? And I'd say, you know what? I'd rather deal with a molehill than before it becomes a mountain. And if you decide and tell me that it is not a molehill and it's just my perception, then I definitely want to have that conversation, because it doesn't matter whether you build that mountain or I build that mountain. It's going to become insurmountable at some point. And so I've always been doing this. Why are we doing this? And how are we doing this? And so being able to recognize those patterns, and we don't want to do that because it's uncomfortable, right?
You've reminded me of, I guess, my biggest addiction when I was a love addict. And that was, I can't move on unless we move on, because I won't abandon you.
Yeah.
And it was I'll save you, I'll fix you. I won't abandon you. I don't, and it was like, abandonment was my greatest fear. And then I realized, for example, that in forgiving, I guess, adults in my life or everyone in my life, rather than they did me wrong, I looked at what they actually had to share. Because if they haven't got it, they can't share it. And that was a game changer. And the next level for me was realizing that I need to accept and respect people who won't take the lid off or even slightly loosen the valve. Because if they are as scared as I was of change, of being out of control, and I was petrified that I would go mad if I take the lid off and just think, and everything falls into place and I wouldn't be able to stop, and I'd be, trussed up, dressed in white, rocking in the corner, locked up somewhere with my mind catching up, but no ability to communicate to the outside world. Either that or I'd start crying and I'd never be able to stop. And that was my fear of letting go of control and taking part in life. And if other people have that fear, and I could compare myself to my parents, my family, my ancestors, other people I've known, and I think, God, I had it hard. You really had it hard. And considering how you are, you've done good. But I can't blame them for not taking the lid off if they don't wish to take the lid off and if they don't feel safe enough to take the lid off. But meanwhile, the way that you and I hang out, for example, and the way the communities that we belong in hang out is like, we're safe with each other and we can talk about things. We can be with ourselves because we are met. But if I was alone in this, then maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I couldn't, because I'd be alone and there'd be no one to catch me once the lid comes off and things overflow and it becomes messy. Same with my men's groups. It's like, thank God they've got the groups. And I say to them, if you feel safe here, whether it's in the groups or working privately or with your friends or with your church or with your buddies or whatever it is, if you feel safe enough, then slowly, gently take the lid off. If you don't, then first organize your safety and then take a step. Because otherwise it's like, well, I tried it and it hurt and it was lost and it was painful and I put the lid back on and it's never coming off again. It needs to be managed with tender, loving care.
Absolutely. And that reminds me that a lot of people think that the only person they can take the lid off with, if they can, is their partner. And then the relationship becomes it becomes almost like it becomes the powder keg, because if there's only one person you can take the lid off with, it's going to be explosive. Whereas if you've got a circle of people around you, and that's the flexible boundaries, you include people in that circle. When I say to people, so who's the person you've got the best relationship with? And they go, my partner, my child, my parent. And I go, no, first of all, you got to trust yourself. You are the person who you've got the best relationship with. And then you start including other people, and people move in and out. Like we don't see each other that often, but when we move in very close again. But then, and again, it's that flexibility rather than that holding on, or rather than that shutting off. One of my teachers had a really good metaphor for this, Shirley Smith, who I worked with for a number of years. She said, a lot of people's boundaries are like either walls or nothing. And so they build the wall and then they tear the wall down. And it's hard work in either case to build it and to tear it down. What you really want to have is a fly screen. Good air comes in, bad bugs stay out. And you have a door in that fly screen. And the handle is on the inside. You decide when you open that door and you let somebody in. And that really this was many, many moons, and, since it's almost full moon, many, many moons ago. And it's made such a difference to how I approached relationships. And again, letting go of that, I am the one who's holding this all together. And again, control is not stalking somebody, managing, being responsible for them and getting into that control position of I know better. Control can also be I'm letting you control, because that's control as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we're getting into the spongy boundaries. Look, I mean, we didn't cover the different headings, but I think everybody gets a sense that soft boundaries is just having, you just give yourself up. You just pour yourself into the relationship. Rigid boundaries, that's the love addict, the avoidance addict, right? That's the wall. And then spongy boundaries, it's basically totally inconsistent. Yes, no, yes, no. And this is the best love addiction part. Yes, now I'm the avoidant. Now I'm the love addict. Going back and forth. So what's your best tip for maintaining healthy relationship boundaries?
Do you know, I think it depends on who.
Sure.
And it depends in the moment. I know exactly what it is, actually. And I was going to say this a second ago with the way that I navigate life, because when you mentioned what was that gauze thing, the fly thing?
Fly screen.
I pictured a mosquito net. And every now and again with my mosquito net, I've got a mosquito in the net with me. And I would say that for me, the number one tip is to, whatever's going on, breathe into it and feel it. And if I don't feel it, and then from there, follow the feeling back.
Yeah.
Because what's really going on is probably not the drama in hand. It's what's being triggered in the past.
Yeah.
And then I need to feel that. And if I don't feel that, I can't heal that.
Yes.
And if I don't heal that, it's going to keep coming back. Bigger and louder. Two mosquitoes, a whole family of mosquitoes. So for me, exactly. And if the man in me can take care of that child, follow the feeling back, and it would be something in my childhood, rather than offering that to my partner, you take care of this. If the man in me can do that, then the man in me is present to meet the person in front of me.
Yeah.
And then I am available to love, to be loved, to give love, to receive love, rather than in fear to give you my child to take care of and to carry on with the drama.
Yeah.
I would say that is the number one thing. And from there comes the negotiation, because then I'm present. And where is the other person? And it's not like, okay, now I've done this, you have to meet me here. It's, this is where I am. Where are you? And then we can start finding exactly. And then the dance can take place. And these days, I'm okay with a mosquito in my net, because I know that I've lived so much into love and into my gold shadow, the goodness that might be, that in the past I dare not believe might come my way. So I've gone so much into the gold shadow that if I'm willing willing to receive more, then something will come up in my dark shadow. And that's where I need to follow it back, be with that part, feel it, heal it, release it, and let it open up in the gold shadow. So I'm available to more life, to more love, to more expression, to more freedom. Yeah. And that's my negotiation. That's my navigation.
And I think that is the key. It's the whole, just as a summary, what I'm hearing and what I would agree with, I do agree with, is that we are not, that a lot of people go into relationship to heal their wounds, or to, close those wounds, whatever term you want to use. And the other person becomes responsible for that. Whereas when you go into a healthy relationship with healthy boundaries, that's when we own what's going on for us. We acknowledge that the other person may trigger it, but it's not their responsibility, to fix it, to heal it, but it's also not their responsibility to make sure that we are okay in that victim position. so that we grow together and separately.
And this reminds me of another thing, and I'll tell you what happened earlier on that made me a scared little boy. Is a relationship for me that works means that the adult in me can meet the adult in the other person. And also the child in me can meet the child in the other person. And also, yeah. And also the adult in me can meet the child in the other person if the other person's vulnerable and needs me to be the father replacement or a rock or whatever it is, you know, safe and sound while they're vulnerable. That's allowed. It's normal. What could be more normal?
As long as it's acknowledged that it's a temporary thing, so that the caring for does not become a permanent thing of I am now responsible for your needs.
Forever. Exactly. And exactly as you say, as long as the relationship has access to all of those four, rather than I'll be your daddy, or I'll be your son, or I'll be a child and we can only be children together. As long as there's access to all four, and things can be consciously shifted from one to the other, or if it's unconscious in panic or trauma, there is a place to get together and consolidate and again be intimate with what is, and be present with what has been, and be intimate here and now with what is. Then we're on to a winner. And for me, it's not like growth is the work that always has to be done. It shouldn't be work, it's life and it's love. And for me, it's not doing. My doing needs to be a servant of my being. And with that, things need to generally be undone rather than done. That's my cheat sheet.
Which takes us right back to boundaries.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, I know you and I could talk about this for hours, and we will. Thank you so much.
What a joy.
Yes.
I love hanging out with you. We go places so quickly, don't we? It's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lovely.
And thank everybody for watching and listening. I'll see you next time. And please remember to subscribe to get more of these conversations.